Hi, I'm Miranda Kitterlin Lynch. I'm one of the co-hosts of Checking In, a Lodging DEI chat. Unfortunately, my co-host Leon Thomas is unable to join me today, but we're still going to have an awesome conversation, and I'm super excited about today's guest. I've been following his career and what he's doing now. Super interesting, super cool. If we want to go ahead and bring on our guest, let's meet him. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Miranda. How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today with us.
Yeah, thanks
If
for having me.
you, of course, of course. If you don't mind, could you just share with our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Andrew Whitson, and it's a pleasure to be here today. And a little bit about me, I grew up in upstate New York, right, basically on the border of Canada. And I always had a passion for helping others, as well as creating and leading diverse spaces. And so when I went off to college, I was an education major and also worked quite a lot with social justice on campus. And that continued on throughout my career, working in different, college admissions roles, student support, and then most recently working for the American Hotel and Lodging Association as the academic manager or senior manager of academic programs. So working with scholarships, grants, and various other academic programs like speaker series and things like that. And so really encapsulating my whole career, it's always been about helping people get from where they are to where they want to be next, or assisting them in creating the space that they need at work or in school or both. So currently, I have started my own business, doing coaching and consulting for schools, businesses, as well as individuals. So I really have two sides of my business. One is working one-on-one with either students or early career professionals that are transitioning from one career to the next. And then the other side of things is doing diversity, equity, and inclusion consulting. So mostly focused around unconscious bias in the workplace or in school and how that affects our ability to be successful. But I also do other things like creating spaces and inclusive language and gender diversity in school, sports, or the workplace. So a little bit of everything.
That's fantastic. That aligns right within my values, both the helping people and the DEI initiatives. So that's fantastic. Wonderful.
Kindred
Um,
spirits we are.
yes. For anyone who's listening who may not be clear on what exactly unconscious bias is, would you mind unpacking that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So when we talk about unconscious bias, the first part being unconscious, right? They are things that we are doing that we are not aware of. And then the bias part is it's impacting our ability to make decisions without us knowing about it. So if you think about an example, right? Let's take short people can't play basketball, right? So if I'm taking that unconscious bias and I'm thinking, oh, like, this person is less than 5'5", they can't play basketball, but then they go out on the court and they are just dominating, shooting 3-pointers and crushing it. They can obviously play basketball, but we may have already prejudged them based off of their something as simple as their height, and wrote them off without giving them a chance. So it's things like that that just kind of impact our ability to effectively teach, coach, or work with our coworkers just because of things that we were taught by society, that we don't necessarily think of, but impact our ability to be successful.
That was a great explanation. Thank you for that. How would we see this, for example, happening in the hospitality industry workplace?
Yeah. So one thing that's coming to mind as I'm currently planning a wedding is, gender bias in the wedding industry and events industry. A lot of the forms that I've filled out, it says bride, groom, right? And that may not always be what it is. It could be groom and groom. It could be bride and bride, etc., or all different things. So I think something as simple as a form, right? We don't often think about, for people that may not identify within a gender binary, how something as simple as filling out a form could cause stress. And so when you have people working in HR and in leadership that maybe haven't been exposed to that, they don't think about it. And it may not necessarily be their fault. They just have never been exposed to that until someone brings it to light. And so I think it's really important to have, plugged in like conversations like this where people are learning more about, things that are happening with our, whether it's our clients or whether it's our customers, in a hotel, of just like how to better serve them, and how their check-in experience or their checkout experience could be impacted by unconscious bias as well. Does that help?
That's a perfect example. And first, I'm assuming it's your wedding that you're planning.
Yes.
So congratulations and good
Thank
luck.
you.
I know that can be a stressful experience, but yeah, that's such a good example. And it's funny that you say that because just yesterday I was filling out forms for my children. I have two daughters in elementary school. And with every form, the first section is father's information, then mother's information.
Yep.
And I just thought to myself, I have filled out 99.9% of the forms. Why am I listed as second?
Hmm.
Um, but certainly not nearly as damaging or what's the word? Not as negative of an experience as I could see it in your example. So thank you for that. It also makes me think of how we're having to relearn things that have been ingrained in us. I remember growing up in the hospitality industry saying ladies and gentlemen, right? We treat
Mhm.
everyone as ladies and gentlemen. And now when I walk into class, I have to make a conscious effort not to say that because it's just something that I've said for so long. But I want to be inclusive of everyone, right? So, what are some other inclusive language or inclusive terms that you think that other people may not be aware of, or it may not be on their radar? Because I know I'm a lifelong learner. I'm trying to do better every day, but I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah, that's a great example, and I think I want to point out what you said about making a conscious effort, right? And that really is the key to battling unconscious bias, is like making a conscious decision to be a learner, to learn from your experiences, to learn from others, and then kind of correct and move forward, right? The best way to learn is to maybe to fail a little bit or make a mistake and then learn from it and grow. So I wanted to call attention to that I think what you're doing is a great example of flipping the switch and saying, okay, I've been used to saying ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to say y'all, or you know hello everyone, just kind of making it inclusive. But I do think one that I hear a lot, and it's interesting because I identify as a male, but I also identify as genderqueer, so he they pronouns. But I hear a lot in meetings with multiple genders represented. Hey guys, and I think a lot of women don't particularly get graded by it, but some do, and so I think it's interesting that continues to be something that I hear from a lot of leaders of like, okay, guys, we're gonna bring it on in, or let's wrap it up, and it's like, like we're not all guys, and I've taken it upon myself to kind of call attention to that, just because that's the space that I'm in and operate. Hey guys may not be the most inclusive way to address your team, or your customers, or anyone that you're dealing with. Um, but it's one of those things that we don't think about, right? But like guys used to have this connotation of being everybody, right? But it really it isn't. So
Yes, that example hit me right here because growing up in the South and then transitioning to other parts of the world, I have had to relearn to replace y'all with something. And so I naturally just replaced it with you guys. But yeah, you're right. And I say it to my daughters all the time. Hey, you guys, let's get in the car. But
mhm.
yeah, see, this is why I love these conversations because I'm constantly learning. Thank you for that. So.
And honestly, I'm not from the South, but I use y'all because it's quick and it's inclusive. So you can use y'all, in my
Yes,
opinion.
it is.
Yeah.
Who
So
knew 20 years later it would be the better alternative?
yeah, I've had people ask like, "Where are you from?" And, like, I thought you were from New York, and I'm like, just because I say y'all does not mean I'm not from New York. So,
That's fantastic. I love it. Um, would you say that you have, let me back up. So you mentioned that one of your passions is helping people, right?
mhm.
Were there defining people, mentors, champions, allies within your career path that have helped you to be a better helper, if you will?
Absolutely. I think as many of us in, our careers have been blessed by having amazing mentors. My first one was my band teacher in high school. And then one of my bosses during college that I was her assistant was an amazing mentor for me, and someone I still keep in touch with. I talked with them just a couple of months ago about my dissertation for my PhD, and just kind of caught up on life and school and work. And so they've just been an amazing mentor for me. And then my first college job, I like working for a college, sorry. I had a great mentor who was the director of diversity there. And she has also been an amazing resource for me, especially now launching my own business. It's been a really great resource to have her on my side, and just kind of we're in the same space, but we're not competing. And there's so much work to be done on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So there's even though there may be a lot of people, there's still so much that can be done, and it really is about who you know and who you're networking with. So I never really feel like we're stepping on toes. And all of us have like a unique specialty or thing. So every organization that I communicate with, it's like maybe I'm not the best person to serve them, but I know people that would be better. And I think that's really helpful when you're operating a business, of being honest, of saying, this really, it sounds like you could use this, and I know a person that does this.
Yeah,
So I found that to be really helpful.
fantastic. And I think that's such a poignant comment that you make, that yes, there's a lot of people working on this, but there's so much more that needs to be worked on.
Mhm.
So we can use all hands on deck. So absolutely. So let me just clarify. So you're launching a business, you're planning a wedding, you're working on your PhD?
Yes.
Andrew, do you have the S for super on your shirt under your
Uh,
blazer?
maybe, or I should get one. No, so it's one of the reasons why I chose to step down from my role at HLA, was just had too many things going on, and wanted to continue to live my mission, but in a different way. And so I think that's been really, you know, I feel like it's never the right time to do any of these things, right? But it just felt like this was the right thing for me and my family. And um, there's with all of this, there's flexibility, and I think that's what I really, when I had a 9 to 5 job, it's just hard to fit in everything else.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think
Absolutely.
it's hard to make that decision, but it was one that I'm glad that I did, and now I'm, able to focus a little bit more on other things.
Well, I know that all your endeavors are going to be successful, and I look forward to watching them unfold. Is there anything that, is there anything looking back on your career path? Is there anything that you felt was maybe missing in terms of support in order to be successful? Is there anything you would have liked to have seen along the way?
It's a great question, and I think the thing that stands out for me is leadership, right? And I've had some amazing leaders, and I've had some great leaders that don't have the support from their leaders, and so I think what I've noticed in my career, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, is just that there is a really big gap between what makes a good and a great leader, and then there's some bad leaders out there too, right? And so I think that's probably one of the most difficult things to navigate as an early professional, is recognizing what is good leadership, and what is not good leadership, and then it's really hard in this market to make a decision and saying, like, I'm going to step away from a job. I think there's still that ingrained in us that, like, we got to keep going. Um, but sometimes, like any relationship, right? Whether it's a personal relationship or a professional one, if it's not working for you, like, it's okay to take a step away. There will be other jobs, there will be other opportunities, and um, take it all as a learning experience. I say this a lot in my coaching, with interviews, right? Like, every interview is just like a date, right? If it's a bad date or a bad interview, it gives you information on what you do or do not want. And that's helpful. So if you take it as an information gathering moment, then you can help to kind of figure out what you want from work and what you want from whatever relationship it is that you're pursuing.
That's really excellent advice. Absolutely. And I hope anybody listening will really take that on their journey with them. I want to ask you something, and it's one of my favorite questions to ask guest speakers in my classroom and on the podcast. As you look back at your career, were there any mistakes that you feel you most learned from?
Mm. So I have a funny story. So my first job out of high school, I was a store manager at a camp in New York. So like an overnight camp. And I must have made every mistake imaginable. So probably too much information, but there was a slushy
Never.
machine. And so, I left, you're supposed to clean out the slushy machine before you leave for the weekend. And I left it there. And then I came back to a moldy mess on Sunday, which was awful. And, but just stuff like that, like things that I didn't think about. And, in the moment didn't feel like it was an issue. But what was great about that, obviously it was in the moment not great, but because of that, I was able to create a binder full of like what to do instead of like I did all the things you're not supposed to do. So here's what you should be doing. And that was really helpful for both me, kind of like, okay, like learning from my mistakes. I always say I'm a practical learner, right? So like I learn by doing, exploring, let me have the freedom to make some mistakes and learn from it. But that experience made more mistakes than I probably needed to, but I learned so much from that. And I think what I would say to folks is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Because for me, that's how I learn. And for a lot of the students and professionals that I work with, sometimes that's what really gets us to where we need to go. If we're always, perfect or always, doing everything great, it may feel good, but are we really learning and growing? If we're always just getting 100%, I think that's where the teachers in us, right? Or like, we need to constantly be able to find room for growth, reasonably, so that people can learn and grow and develop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the key point is learning from the mistakes versus
Mhm.
continuing to make them over and over again,
Exactly.
which could certainly be the easier option at times. Awesome.
I'll
Well,
tell you, I never left that slushy over the weekend ever again.
I bet. Awesome. Is there anything that you're doing with launching your business? Is there anything that you want to share with us that you'd like for us to know about it, look for? What can we expect?
Yeah, so I'm finishing up. I have a couple of videos that I want to put on my website that I'm wrapping up and hope to have launched in the next week or so. So definitely keep, my LinkedIn page is scrolling down at the bottom of your screen. So definitely take a look at that. I'll be posting some updates here in the next couple of weeks. I've got a Facebook page and Instagram page all at once. Want to just get it all out there and in front of people. So definitely keep your eyes and ears open for that. Yeah, and then the start of the school year is always a great time. So if anyone's wanting to work with me on an individual basis or from a business or school basis, start back to school is a great time to start the conversation, right? So those would be the two things I would say of just, yeah, keep an eye and ear out. And if I can ever be helpful, I want to see how I can help you get where you want to be.
I love it. Thank you so much for that. All right, before we release you, because I know you're a busy guy, we've already talked about all the things you have going on. I do have a couple of signature questions for you.
Mhm.
Um, Technically, we've expanded it to 3 signature questions. If Leon were here, he would ask you first, have you ever had a Maryland crab cake?
Yes. I live in Maryland currently, and they are so this may hurt the Northeastern people, but I think they are the best crab cakes, particularly if you get them broiled. So I think a lot of people recognize the fried crab cake, but in Maryland, it is a broiled. So you get more of that crab and less of the breading. So it's really good.
I could get on board with that for sure. And I realized, see, this is what happens when I'm a solo host of the show is I didn't ask you to get a pen and write out your signature. If Leon were here, he would say, grab
Oh.
your pen, write out your signature. His would go all the way to the end of the screen. So we're just going to pretend like we did that. All right.
I'll say mine's very sloppy. I've been confused for a doctor many times, which I will be a doctor, but not a medical doctor. So
Listen, that's my excuse every time. I'm a doctor. Don't expect to read my handwriting.
we are
But it works
intended
out
to get
because my oldest daughter is at the phase where she has to bring things home to be signed.
there.
And I'm just like, go ahead, honey, you can sign it. No one's going to know the difference. All right. So, Maryland crab cakes, I have to go find one that is broiled, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Um, Now, talk to me about bean pie. Have you ever heard of bean pie? Are you familiar?
Is it like a white bean pie? I
You're
think.
asking the wrong person.
Yeah.
Leon has been trying to educate me about bean pie. I really think that it's a practical joke that he's pulling on me. I don't believe it exists.
So
Um,
the only reason I know about this is because I watch a lot of cooking shows. So
okay.
it's like you can call it white bean or tonka bean. And so it's a white colored bean, and I've never had it myself, but it doesn't sound great because when I think of beans, I think of like pinto or kidney or black beans, which doesn't sound good in a pie. But apparently, when it's cooked, it has more sugar that comes out. So kind of like a sweet potato pie, but with a bean.
Okay. So
So now
that's
you
what it
know.
looks like in the pictures that I've been shown.
Yeah.
Um, our last guest on our most recent episode, Lisa Kane, shared a recipe with
Mm.
me. So I'm going to challenge myself to see what this is all about. And then our final question should be the easiest one of the day. I'm being sarcastic. If you if you could go back in time and
Mm,
tell your 20-year-old self one piece of advice,
mm.
affirmation, pearl of wisdom, anything, what would it be?
This is not the first time I've been asked that question, so I hopefully
So
have a
you're
good
ready.
answer. So I was the type of person coming out of college that I wanted to change the world and do everything. And I still, have the desire to make a change on the world. But I think 21-year-old me was just too gung ho, too ambitious. And, it was kind of like, no matter what, I'm going to be successful. And there's a good part about that confidence. But if I could say anything to my 21-year-old self, I would say calm down, and like it is okay, and be more of a sponge, learn more before changing everything. I kind of came into my first professional position of like, this is all the things that I want to do, and this is what I want to change. And everyone I was meeting with was like, "Whoa!" so, so I think now being a little bit more sage in my career, I know to take at least a couple months, observe, and having innovative, creative ideas is a great thing, but you also have to kind of prove yourself and get more acclimated to your workspace before you start changing everything.
That, that is great advice for many aspects of life. So
Mhm.
thank you so much, Andrew. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us on Checking In a Lodging DEI Chat. I believe we're at episode 56.
Nice.
Missing our co-host Leon Thomas, but thank you for the wonderful conversation. And is there anything that you'd like to shout out before we let you reclaim some of your time?
So I think the only thing I forgot to mention is my PhD topic, which is the onboarding experience of transgender individuals when they start a new position. And I'm focusing a little bit on the tech industry, but I think there's a lot of the research that I'm doing that's applicable to hospitality as well. And so kind of what we were talking about of like the experience of filling out forms, that's what really spurred this research topic. And I'm really excited for getting more into the interview part of the research process, and really find some really great information to share. So it'll be a year or so later, but keep your eyes peeled for that as well.
That's fantastic. Again, because this is something that I know a lot of people want to get right, but we don't know what we don't know. So I look
Mhm.
forward to seeing what your findings come up with. That's
Thank you.
fantastic. Well, good luck with your business. Good luck with the wedding. Good luck with the PhD. If I can ever be of help to you, please don't hesitate. And thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and looking forward to seeing what you all are doing as well.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us again on Checking In a Lodging DEI Chat.